Hello everyone, today I'm taking a look at the LCMD MicroServer. And this little cube right here packs an Intel Mobile Core i5-13500H. It's got space for 5 M.2 NVMEs, 2.5 gig Ethernet, USB 3, etc. in this cool looking metal case, I guess. They also talk up like AI, and they got their own app and stuff, but we're going to look at this from a hardware perspective, see if this hardware is any good to build a home lab out of, and if that sounds good to you, then come along on this adventure. Also, disclosure, LCMD, Lazy Cat, sent me this guy for review in retail packaging, I think. So no money changed hands. They won't see the review until you do. Of course, watch the review to see what I think, but yeah, come along. So, first up, let's open the box. Now, it came in this beautiful octagon here. It says LCMD MicroServer. Let's roll it around. MicroServer. Linux inside. So, I'm excited to see this packaging experience is quite nice. So I can peel the top open. And what do we got inside? We got like a plastic shell. Where's a hat? Let's see if I give you guys a bit of the experience too. I guess this has paperwork in it. Yeah. Well, we don't need paperwork anyway. We got some boxes with accessories. And we got the unit itself, little cube here. So, the unit itself, LC03. I'm pretty sure this is the front, because we got some LEDs there. But most importantly, we got a peel somewhere here. So we can peel that, we can peel that. So with the peel removed, we can see this guy for real. LC03, microserver, some sort of bar graph here. That's not a power button, that's just decorative. 03 LCMD microserver. Other side, this is, I think, also just decorative. Linux inside. And on the back, we get all the I/O. So we've got Ethernet, 2 USB Type-Cs, 3 USB 3s, HDMI, power brick, headphone jack, M, not sure what M is, and power button. In accessory box number 1, we've got, well, that's an Australian power cord, interesting. And the power brick with the Mickey Mouse ear style. Lucky for them, I happen to own a whole bunch of power adapters since I just moved to Europe, so an Australian plug is no problem for me. Okay, this guy is 19 volt, 120 watt. That is quite large for something this big. And in goodie box number 2, we've got a flat Ethernet cord and power adapter. Oh, okay, so I guess they didn't have a Euro plug, so they may give me one of these. So I guess that means it's time to boot it up now. So hooking up my capture setup, I got USB 3, just using USB 2, HDMI, and of course, power. So I'll bring that guy in, and where's the power button? Push the power button, and there we go, lights up. So looks like it powered on automatically with power, so we'll capture and see what it does. Lazy Cat MicroServer. Lazy Cat, that's what LCMD stands for. Interesting choice of name. I'm not really sure what to expect on the HDMI output, but I'm just getting this logo here. So this thing booted up and showed just a splash image, and it's out of the box config. So I hooked it up to internet, and I'm not sure what its IP address is, so I did an Nmap scan on my whole network, and I didn't find anything showing HTTP. I would expect it to have a web UI. So then I went to DNS Service Discovery and browsed for http.tcp. So is it advertising itself over MDNS? And it wasn't doing that either. So I broke down and I read the instructions. And the instructions first tell you to plug it in. And the second instructions say install the mobile app from instructions or the desktop client. They have a desktop client too. They actually have it for quite a few operating systems. And then it says go to lcmd.cloud/init and configure your device for the first time. And I obviously didn't do that. So we're instead going to do a packet capture and see what it does when it first boots up. So I've got it hooked up to my network. This is the same network I use when I'm testing like ISP stuff, so I have CGNAT addresses, but whatever. It's going to packet capture everything. So we'll power it on now. And it should boot itself up automatically. I'm going to give it a couple minutes, and then we're going to take a look at Wireshark. So it looks like right about here it boots up. It says DHCP discover. You get who has the address 250. So then we're doing, this is MDNS. What's going on down here with MDNS? Okay, so it's advertising itself under whitespace.tcp.local. It's probably some internal service. Well, it shows up as their lazy cat. I don't know Chinese, but we'll see what this shows. So we officially got the address at 250. So now we query ping.lazycat.cloud, and we're pinging across two DNS servers, so .0.3, that's the server I told it to use from the network. And it looks like 223.6.6.6 is hard-coded, so it's got one hard-coded and one from the network. So it looks like this guy's Anycast. He's coming out of a bunch of different ASNs. In this case, it looks like this prefix would win since it's the most specific. So let's see who's hosting this. Alibaba. Yes, it's probably Alibaba's public DNS server. Okay, so we got a quad A response back, and it has no answers, which means that there's no quad A for that. By the way, this behavior of DNS probably confuses people. If you ask for a record, and that record does not exist, many people think you should get a NX domain, which means domain does not exist. However, that only happens if there are no records of any type. So in this case, it asks for a quad A. There probably is an A record, but not a quad A. So it says the record exists, you didn't get an error, but there's 0 answers, because there's 0 answers of the type you asked for. So normal stuff. And we came back with that record, and we got 47, 246, 191. Okay, so we're looking for a 47 address here. And we immediately open port 80 to them. So since this is port 80, I can follow this conversation. So we said git nm check ping.lazycat.cloud, and we got response from T-Engine that just says network manager is online. I think that's the whole response. For some reason, we asked for localhost.lan. I wonder what's going on there, why we would ask for that. So this time we asked for origin.lazycat.cloud. This time we got back a CNAME record, points to origin NL, and it also gave us that record too, which is 45. So we're going to 45 for origin.lazycat.cloud. And here we do that connection over 443. Best I can get out of that is the client hello, which we will take a look at. So all we get from that is origin.lazycat.cloud. I mean, we could look at the supported algorithms if you really care about that. They're asking for HTTP 2, TLS 1.2 or 1.3, and they support 25497 key share. This is, by the way, the draft 25519 Kyber 768 hex 6399, so that's obsolete but interesting. So whatever server they're connecting to supports a early draft of the post-quantum cryptography key exchange, which is really interesting to see on the internet in the wild. Unrelated to this, I don't think it's actually using that key exchange, but interesting still. So it sticks with TLS for quite a long time here, till we eventually end up at UAUDP. Universal Alcatel UDP Encapsulation Protocol. That is a... what the hell is that? Okay, it's not UAUDP, it's QUIC. So it's doing a handshake here. So ALPN coming back is libp2p. So using libp2p. Okay, an open source networking standard used by Ethereum, IPFS. That's interesting. No server name though, so don't know what the server name is. So at this point, all the traffic is either using TLS 1.3 to the Good Cloud server, or it's using QUIC on port 5500, which is the libp2p traffic. I can't see any of the other traffic. It's just doing MDNS periodically, and that's basically it. So I guess we'll actually have to use their app, or just tear it down and not use their app. What do you think? So let's see what this init is all about. Oh, it's a video. I gotta watch a video?
Hello everyone. Welcome to LCMD MicroServer.
I really don't want to watch a video. I want like a web page I can read as text. Basically it tells me I gotta download the app, which is stupid. So the only screws are on the bottom. These guys are Torx, by the way, so we'll need a Torx bit. Good thing I have a toolkit. T10. Yep, T10. Now, a lot of you guys that just do this casually probably might not have a Torx T10. I really do like Torx because they're much better than Phillips screws, but just be aware of that. Feels like, oh, the bottom comes off. Okay, the bottom came off, just a piece of plastic. So now I got a bunch of Phillips in here, and it looks like I need to take this piece of metal off. Maybe just these two screws and the whole thing will pop out. So we started off strong with some Torx, and we have devolved back into Phillips. Man, these are tight. Oh, this whole inner should, oh, I guess it doesn't pull out. Okay, so 4 more screws. I wasn't sure when I felt this the first time if this was metal or not. I thought the metal wraps all the way around, so it seems like it might not be like formed, but it looks like it's extruded. So the outer case of this seems to be an extrusion, which is this sort of square octagonal shape, which is probably good for cooling. This thing feels very well built, even if it's slightly a pain to get into because of how many screws I got to take off. Okay, so that cap is off. Now do you just come out? What are you stuck on? Oh, now you come out this way. Oh, wow. So got the shell off. This form factor square here, this is the aluminum extrusion. The CPU unit came out the back, which is kind of a cool construction method. I like it. I just don't like having to get to 12 screws so far to get into this thing. This guy looks like quite a unit now. So I got the whole back panel all in one piece. Over here I got 2 of the drive slots. I guess we'll find the rest of them later. We got space for what looks like a 2.5-inch drive that'll slide in there. Is that what that's for? Maybe 2 2.5-inch drives based on the screws. Got the blower cooler, which blows out to the back. Yeah, this is quite a nice unit. So as for the drive slots, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 here. There's a Wi-Fi slot down in there, and number 5 is right here. I think 5 is all I'm supposed to find. I don't know. This is quite a sandwich, though. It's not the easiest thing to work on. I mean, it's very well built again, but it's not the easiest thing to work on. And it looks like RAM is in there. I can't tell if that's 1 or 2 sticks, but it's, I think it's 1 stick, and there's the side retaining tab. I don't know if you can read the lettering on those chips in there, but I'm guessing that's a PCIe switch. Okay, can we get the cage off now? So I got 1 little screw there, and I got 2 on each side. Oh, I snagged the Wi-Fi antennas. Oh, I hope I didn't break them. Okay. Okay, trying for these now. There we go. Okay, I got the cage off. So this really feels like a product that's supposed to be built to be rugged and be like an appliance and not to be disassembled. And if that was the market for this and it came with the drives pre-included, I would say it's well built. If they're shipping this as a final product where they're including the storage, they're including everything, this is really quite well built. But if you have to tear this down to put the drives in, it's not really built for ease of access for that. So it's well built. It's not hard to tear down per se. There's just a lot of steps to get to the drives. So now I think to get to the other drives, I actually have to pop off this upper board. Yeah, okay. Got that off. So it looks like in here we have a Western Digital WD Black, and we have a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth card, and we have a spot for 1 more. This board also has USB, so I'll set that out of the way. So here on the CPU board, it looks like they pre-installed an SSD down on that last slot. And then we have a fan which cools the RAM, the SSD, and then the CPU fan on this side. So this is the fan that gives us cooling for our M.2s, which honestly is probably perfectly adequate. There's also two of these flat flex connectors here, SATA 1, SATA 2. So these will be for the 2.5-inch drives. I don't have any cables for them though, so I'm not sure what goes there. So now I got to get this whole thing back together. So I took out, let's see, 4 Torx screws. We're doing so well with the Torx, then we gave up on Torx. Then I had to take out 8 screws to get the back plate off. I then had to take out 4 screws on the cage, 5 tiny little screws for the front panel, and it's disassembled to the point where I can put the drives in. So that was a lot of work for putting drives in. I'm also going to guess that that coax is now broken. It is not looking so good, so I don't think it survived. So next up, I got a Linux image on my Proxmox flash drive. I'm going to try to boot it up and see how easy that is. So I'm ready here to mash the delete key, which on Mac OS is actually function delete. I guess it could be escape too. We'll see what happens. I'm just going to keep rebooting it till we find the right key combination. Nope, that wasn't it. Well, I tried delete, escape, every F key, and got nothing. So I'm still booting up into Linux here. I did something to it. Oh, I ended up at a login. I am noticing my keyboard control doesn't appear to be working though, so maybe it's not going because I can't get into the BIOS from the USB Type-A port. Some mini PCs I've noticed can only get into the BIOS from certain ports, so we're going to try one of the Type-C ports and see if that's my problem. Well, TTY switching doesn't work either. That's frustrating. Since some systems are weird, I guess we'll try a real keyboard. And still keep the emulated one just in case. We got Grub to lock up. Now how do I get Grub to take me into the BIOS? Is there a Grub password? Well, they have certainly tried to lock this thing down, so that's going to be frustrating. How about Alt F2? That's been, I think it's Alt F2, maybe it's Control F2. There we go, okay. Okay, it seems to be Alt Shift F2. No idea why, but got on the BIOS. Okay. So we have Raptor Lake, 13th Gen i5, 13500H, as we expected. Let's see, we're going to boot override Windows or Debian. Why do you not see my USB drive? Is USB boot not a possibility? It detects the flash disk here, but it's not letting me choose it as a boot option. There we go. There we go. Okay. Man, what a pain to get this thing booted into another system. So this is where I keep getting to. Unable to find a medium contained in the live file system. It seems like when the live Linux starts up, all the USB ports just die because the keyboard stops working, the virtual keyboard stops working, like numlock, scroll lock, those all stop working, and it loses the live system. So I'm not sure what's happening, but somehow the live system is not happy with this. It's a new day. This thing is driving me absolutely up the wall. I don't know what's going on, if it's a firmware issue, a hardware issue, some weird compatibility issue, but I am having a real hard time getting things to just work with this. So, backing up a little bit, when I last left you, I was trying to boot Xubuntu. So I tried 2404, which is the LTS, long-term support, and I tried 2504, which is the latest. And both of them would give me an error. The error you just saw like a few seconds ago. And when they got this error, they would ask me to like press Y or N to try net booting. But the keyboard didn't work. And I was using my open interface. This thing, I've probably made a video on it before, up here. This is a USB KVM. So it has internally a USB hub. And then one of the ports comes out to an external port that you can plug in your flash drive to. Another port emulates a keyboard and a mouse from the orange cable that connects to my laptop. And then it can also capture HDMI, super useful little tool. And it would stop working once it got to that point. So I got out a physical keyboard, and this would work in the BIOS, the open interface would work in the BIOS, but as soon as Ubuntu got in, it was loading Ubuntu and then it would fail, and I couldn't press Y on the keyboard. And I was like, what the hell is going on? So then, just randomly, this thing supports USB-A and USB-C, and I moved it from a USB-A port to a C port, and it started working again. Well, it didn't work again. The physical keyboard worked again. And it's like, what is going on? So like, why does moving ports after I've already booted Linux sort of break things? So then I thought maybe it's got a 13th gen Intel, maybe there's some sort of graphics driver incompatibility, and it's loading it and failing or something. So I tried safe video mode. Then I was like, well, what if I go back to an old version of Ubuntu to see if it's a kernel bug or something? So now I'm running Ubuntu 20.04. So this is the LTS from 5 years ago. And it booted into an XFCE environment. I have a GUI, it works. And I was playing around with it yesterday, and the Kiwi still just doesn't work. Sorry, not the Kiwi, the OpenInterface. The OpenInterface that I use for testing all my mini PCs wouldn't work after I got out of the BIOS. It worked in Grub, but then once I got past Grub, it would stop working. I'm like, what the hell? So then I got out another one, because I actually have 3 different products like this that I've reviewed on my channel. All of them are fantastic, by the way. I love these USB KVMs. So I tried the next product, the Cytrance Kiwi. This one works kind of similarly, but it doesn't have a built-in USB hub. So it just has the emulation port, and then it can emulate storage through the same emulation device. So there's no hardware hub. And this works fine. And I don't know if it's some sort of hub bug or something, because in Ubuntu 20.04, based on whatever old kernel this is, the OpenInterface shows up in dmessage. It discovered the USB device, and it discovered that it was a HID device and added the USB HID device. It just doesn't work in the GUI, which just drives me absolutely crazy. So then this thing worked in the GUI, and I tested it yesterday, and I eventually did my usual stuff. So usually when I get a new mini PC, the first thing I do when I boot up into Linux is I back up the existing SSDs. So everything that's on this guy, I backed up to Proxmox backup server. Then if I ever need to restore it to a factory image, I can do that pretty easily and don't have to worry about wiping it. So I did that, and it took forever, and then I let it sit overnight because it was taking a while. So I come back in the morning, and now my keyboard doesn't work again, my physical one. And neither does the Kiwi. So using the Kiwi, the mouse works. I can move the mouse around. I don't know if you can see this. But the mouse is working, but the keyboard is not. And I'm like, what? Like, what is going on here? So I'm going to try moving the Kiwi. Well, I guess I'll try the physical keyboard too. So unplug the Kiwi, plug it back in. Does the mouse still work? Yes. If I unplug the real keyboard and I plug it into a Type-C adapter, is it suddenly going to work over Type-C? No. It's like, why does the keyboard stop working all of a sudden over time? And now I can't run dmessage to see what happened to it and why it broke. What if you move the Kiwi over to Type-C? Maybe that'll work. I don't know. Let's see. What if I flip it over? Okay, so your mouse works, but your keyboard does not. And like, I can't minimize an app. It's like something has locked up. Like, none of the GUI buttons work. The mouse is still responding, but like, why? Like, what would cause this to happen? So anyway, I'm going to reboot once again because that seems to fix it. I'm booted off a live flash drive, Ubuntu 20.04. We're going to see if we can figure out the PCIe topology of this thing. Like I said, I cannot figure out why this is acting so weird in my test setup. I've never had a mini PC do this to me before. So yeah, let's reboot. I would like to use like both the OpenInterface and the Kiwi at the same time, but I don't have enough USB ports on my laptop. So we're going to use just the Kiwi this time. I've got Ubuntu 20.04 Xubuntu, Xubuntu, on the flash drive. I tried 3 different flash drives too to see if maybe the crashing was caused by a bad block on the flash drive. That didn't work. You know what did work though? Alpine Linux. I booted Alpine into a CLI and it came up just fine. So that was what I thought maybe it was a bug with recent kernels with this hardware or something. I figured out too that the button's just F2 and you just have to press it really fast. It's not actually Alt-Shift F2. I just got lucky, I guess, with that combination. So we're in the BIOS. Now we boot to flash disk. We boot to try Xubuntu Safe Graphics. And this should come up correctly. Actually, while I do this, I'm going to ask the Mastodon folks. There's a simple way to look for something jacked in the firmware. Because they are the nerdiest people. You are now connected. Okay. Come on. Load the stupid thing. Why do you have... Oh, okay. Yeah. Great. So usually when I make these mini PC reviews, I look at LSPCI and I show all the devices. However, because this is the 13th gen and I'm running a super old Linux, it doesn't know a lot of these devices, which makes total sense. It's an old Linux, but I couldn't get New Linux to boot, so I might have to try this one in Alpine. So we got a Samsung NVMe. I can look at that one. And it is off of Intel Corporation device A720, which could be a chipset. I'm actually not sure. But let's see what sort of bandwidth we have to the Samsung SSD. And SanDisk Corp, I believe that's the Western Digital boot drive. Okay, SanDisk Corp. So this is the Western Digital, I think. NVM Express. Now again, I think this is the boot drive. I don't exactly remember which NVMe is which. So one of them, the drive supports PCIe Gen 4 by 4 lanes, so 16 gigatransfers, but we're running it at 8 gigatransfers by 1 lane. Ouch. If that's the boot drive, that's perfectly fine, but, well, if it's only a boot drive, I guess. Let's see what the other one's at. Renesas Technology USB 3 host controller. Maybe that's why I'm having so many USB issues, because it's not using onboard USB off of the Intel CPU. Maybe it's got this Renesas controller that's giving me problems. Okay, Samsung NVM Express. He is running at PCIe Gen 4 by 4 lanes. Okay, that's pretty fast, yeah. So we got full 4 lanes, Gen 4 for one of the drives. Now I gotta figure out which one is which. Okay, Samsung drive. Now that's the fast one. That is NVMe 0N1, and WD Black, that's the slow one, is 1N1. So it looks like 0N1 is our boot drive, and 1N1 is our bulk drive. Okay, so based on this, if you remember in the teardown, one of the NVMEs was on the CPU board. That guy has PCIe Gen 4 by 4 lanes, blazing fast. Then there's the carrier board that supports 4 more NVMEs. Each of these guys are running at Gen 3 by 1 lane. Now the SSD that it came with actually supports Gen 4 by 4 lanes, but the carrier board only supports 1 lane per drive. So we've got 4 lanes to go around for the additional 4 SSDs. That's not fast, so if you expect blazing fast SSD performance, you're not going to get it. This thing has 2.5 gig Ethernet. In theory, we can saturate the network bandwidth from a single Gen 3 PCIe lane. So in that sense, if you're using this purely as a storage server, you're okay. However, this guy's got a Core i5, even a mobile i5. I'm expecting you're going to do quite a bit of computational work on this server and not just send your data as raw files over the network. If you're just doing files over the network, this bandwidth is fine. If you're running VMs, containers that are actually doing processing work on this guy, you want more than 1 PCIe Gen 3 lane per SSD. So I have a bit of an intuition. I'm going to plug in my SD card reader to a Type-C. And oh, that's the Type-A. Type-C. And I'm going to see if my Type-C ports are off of Intel and my Type-A's are off of the other controller. So I currently have 3 things plugged in. So over here I've got bus 5 port 1. This is USB 2, so 40 meg. So I've got mass storage, CDC data, HID, mass storage, COM, HID. So I believe these guys are all of the stuff I've got right now hooked up. And then I've also got Bluetooth on bus 3, port 1. So I run it again. Now my new device has shown up on bus 4, port 1. Okay, so it looks to me like this guy, so this 101c.5 is a PCI address. Off of that we have /0, which is our Renesas USB 3 controller. Off of that we have the XHCI, which is subdevice 0, and we have the XHCI, which is the legacy USB 2, which is device 1. So those guys are off of this PCI device, which is Renesas. Now up here, USB 3 and USB 4 are directly off of this device 14, which is Intel, so it's probably integrated to the CPU. I see, in dmessage here we've got failed to load firmware Renesas USB firmware.mem. Okay, that's probably my problem. So now that I'm up in Alpine, if you want to see the real LSPCI, there we go. So no more just Intel Corporation generic, you can see the real layout. Now here under Alpine it shows that it's loaded a different driver for these USB ports, XHDI PCI Renesas. So back under old Ubuntu it wasn't loading the Renesas driver. So yeah, I bet that the Renesas USB 3 chip is what's causing all my problems. Very weird design choice. I mean, there's 3 USB 3 ports on here, just 3, plus the 2 Thunderbolt ports. Not Thunderbolt, Type-C. And so, like, the the i5 should have enough USB I/O for this. And if it doesn't, you put in a USB 3 switch or something instead of using a PCI chip that has weird compatibility. So, LCMD MicroServer, what do I think? So on paper, this looked like it could be a pretty good little mini PC. So the unboxing experience was awesome. So great job to their packaging people for that. The design of this thing honestly looks pretty nice. I would be quite happy if this were a good product to show this off, display it. The construction quality I also felt was quite good, at least for a device that's not intended to be opened regularly. So like the build quality, everything is, the case is metal. There's a nice cooling solution for the i5. It seemed to go together pretty well. As for like upgradability, it's not the easiest to get in there and upgrade the M.2s. Not a great idea, but if they're planning on selling it populated, I think that's perfectly fine. And that's kind of where the good things end, I think. So it's got some downsides, of course. So it can fit 5 NVMe drives, and I don't know, how many PCIe lanes does this thing have? 28, it tells us. 28, okay. According to Intel, this thing, with its PCH chipset, supports a total of 28 lanes, of which the ones right off the CPU are Gen 5, and the ones off the chips are Gen 3. Somehow we've turned that into like 10 lanes. So we got 4 Gen 4 lanes to the Gen 4 NVMe. It seems like that could support Gen 5. I don't know if it's enabled, but the chip supports it, because they're clearly going off the CPU to get Gen 4. Now for 4 more NVMEs, if you have 28 lanes to work with, I would expect you to give at least 2 lanes to each one. So 2 lanes to each of the 4 at Gen 3 speeds would be 8 more lanes. You also need 1 Gen 2 for the 2.5 gig NIC, and you need one for the Wi-Fi card, which could be CNVI too, I'm not sure. So if they're not using the chipset, they might not have all those lanes available. I don't know how Intel feels about you not using their chipset. AMD doesn't care if you use a chipset or not, but you just get less I/O. Being a mobile processor, I wouldn't expect the chipset would be required, but maybe it is. So maybe we only get 12 lanes or something, but still, 1 lane of Gen 3 is not a lot of bandwidth. It's barely faster than SATA. And then we get the weird USB situation where the USB controller doesn't work. I guess you can get around it by plugging into the Type-Cs only if you don't want to deal with a Renaissance controller, but like I couldn't get this thing to boot properly in my test because of the weird PC, like USB controller issues. So it had so many issues with me just getting Linux to run on it that that should not happen in 2025. Like I'm not sure if the Renaissance chip they're using is not common. For only 5 USB ports, it feels like it shouldn't be necessary to have a PCIe USB 3.0 controller doing USB 3.0. It feels like you should be doing USB 3.2 off the CPU, and if that's not enough, use a hub. The selling price for this, what is it? 16 gig memory plus 2 terabytes SSD. I think that's the model I have. I have a 2 terabyte SSD. $13.99 US. Jesus Christ, that is way too much for this thing. So my options are 16 gig memory for $1,400, 32 gig 4 terabyte for $1,650, 64 gig memory 4 terabyte for $2,000. Jesus, that's a lot. I'd also like to point out that this guy only has 1 memory channel. I think that might be a limitation of the processor. Let's see. No, it supports 2 memory channels. There's only 1 memory slot that I could see. It's possible they have soldered memory and slotted memory. I don't know. Maybe they have a different board for those, which would be weird, I guess. I could take it back apart and see if I was wrong, but I don't think there was a second memory slot in there. So for the 64 gig configuration, that'd be using a single 64 gig stick. Wow, that's... They're trying to sell this as like an all-in-one thing with their app. You guys know I don't look at apps. If it has a web UI, I'll take a look at that and see if it's worthwhile, but I'm not downloading an app just to access files. I expect everyone who's watching my channel is going to be installing their own software anyway, which is what I'm looking at. And I had a really bad time installing my own software. Not that they were like preventing me from it, it's just that the hardware used weird chips that aren't in modern installers, I guess. So anyway, this is the LCMD MicroServer. I am Applard. If you want to chat with me more, I have a Discord server, link down below for that. I also am on Mastodon, kind of like the Deadbird site, but not dead. They were very helpful today in answering my questions, so link to that down in the description below. If you want to give me a tip, you appreciate my reviews, I have a Ko-fi where you can do like a one-time donation. It's kind of like a Patreon, but it's only a one-time thing. Also, feel free to like and subscribe, etc. And I'll see you guys on the next adventure.